Inaction kills you slowly, not through any dramatic collapse, but through the quiet accumulation of days that pass without movement, each one stealing a little more of your potential. While you wait for a better moment that keeps not arriving, until you look up one day and realize that years have gone by and you are exactly where you started. This is not the loud death of catastrophe, but the silent one of stagnation, the kind that does not announce itself, that feels survivable in any single moment because no individual day of inaction seems to matter much. A man can tell himself he will start tomorrow, and that tomorrow feels harmless. Just one more day of delay, but the days compound into weeks and the weeks into years, and the harmlessness of each individual postponement disguises the lethal sum of all of them together. The death by inaction is real precisely because it never feels like dying. It feels like waiting, and the waiting feels reasonable right up until the life is gone. The body and mind both decay when they are not used, following a biological law as old as life itself, which means that standing still is never actually standing still, but always sliding backward, the muscles atrophying, the skills rusting, the capacities you are not exercising quietly shrinking from disuse. A man who stops training does not maintain his strength. He loses it week by week until the body that could once perform can no longer do what it used to. The same applies to every faculty you possess. The courage that fades when never exercised, the discipline that weakens when never demanded, the ambition that dies when never acted upon. This matters because it destroys the comforting illusion that inaction is neutral, that you can pause without cost and resume whenever you choose. When the truth is that every period of inaction actively diminishes you, leaving you weaker than before rather than merely unchanged. There is no holding pattern in a living system, only growth or decay, and inaction always chooses decay. The regret that comes from inaction is a fundamentally different and more corrosive kind of pain than the regret that comes from failure, because the failures you can at least metabolize into lessons and stories, while the things you never attempted remain forever as open wounds, unanswerable questions that haunt you precisely because they were never resolved. A man who tried and failed knows what happened, learned something, can close the chapter and move forward. But the man who never tried carries the permanent torment of not knowing. The what if that can never now be answered because the window has closed. This distinction matters enormously for how you weigh the risk of action against the apparent safety of inaction, because the inaction that seems safer in the moment actually leads to the deeper and more permanent suffering. The regret of a wasted life, full of chances declined and risks avoided, is the heaviest burden a person can carry to the end, and it is the specific harvest that inaction guarantees while pretending to protect you from harm. Every day you fail to act, the version of yourself capable of acting grows weaker, because action is a muscle and inaction is its atrophy, which means that the longer you wait to start, the harder starting becomes, the decision compounding against you with each day of delay. The man who has been inactive for years does not retain the same capacity to spring into motion that he had at the beginning. He has trained himself into passivity, taught his own system that waiting is the default and movement the exception, until the very ability to act has withered from neglect. This is why "I will start later" is such a deadly lie, because later you will be less capable of starting than you are now. The postponement itself eroding the foundation you would need to eventually begin. Why you cannot afford to keep waiting is that the waiting is not preserving your potential for some future use. It is actively consuming it, spending down the capacity for action that you keep telling yourself you will draw on someday. The longer you delay, the less of you remains to do the thing.
The comfort of inaction is a trap baited with the absence of immediate discomfort. Because doing nothing requires no effort, risks no failure, and demands no courage, which makes it feel like the safe and easy choice in the moment, even as it quietly destroys everything you could have become. The man choosing inaction is not choosing it because it is good, but because it is comfortable. Because action is hard and frightening and uncertain, while staying still asks nothing of him at all. This is the seduction that makes inaction so common and so lethal. The way it presents itself as rest, as patience, as waiting for the right time, when it is really just the path of least resistance leading steadily downhill. What changes when you see through this is your relationship to the discomfort of action, because once you understand that the comfort of inaction is purchasing your slow death, the discomfort of taking action transforms from something to avoid into the very price of staying alive. The hard thing becomes the safe thing, and the easy thing reveals itself as the danger. Time is the one resource that inaction wastes irretrievably, and this is what makes it so much worse than other mistakes, because money lost can be earned again, and opportunities missed can sometimes return. But the hours and days and years consumed by inaction are gone permanently, deducted from a finite total that none of us knows the size of. A man acting wastes time too, sometimes, through his errors and false starts, but at least his wasted time bought him experience and progress and the irreplaceable education of contact with reality, while the inactive man's time bought him nothing at all, vanishing into a void of delay that returned no value whatsoever. This is the cruelest arithmetic of inaction, that it spends the most precious and unrecoverable thing you have, and gives you nothing in return, not even the lessons that failure provides. Recognizing this should inject urgency into everything, because every day spent waiting is a day permanently subtracted from the total you have to build the life you want, and that total is shrinking whether you act or not. The way out of inaction is not some massive heroic leap, but the smallest possible movement in the right direction, because the paralysis that keeps you frozen is usually fed by the size of the task you are imagining, and shrinking that task down to something almost trivially small breaks the spell. The man frozen by the enormity of writing a book can write a single sentence. The man paralyzed by the thought of getting in shape can do a single push-up. The point is not the magnitude of the action, but the breaking of the inaction, the shift from stationary to moving. Because once you are in motion even slightly, the laws that govern inaction reverse and begin working in your favor instead of against you. This is how you escape the slow death, not by waiting until you can make some grand gesture, but by making the smallest real movement available to you right now, today, in the next few minutes. Action of any size breaks the spell that inaction casts, and momentum once started becomes far easier to maintain than it was to begin.